Once upon a time in the village of Ikot-Akpafid, where goats argue louder than politicians, there lived a little girl named Ekom. She was only 10 years old, yet life had already thrown her more lemons than a juice factory could handle. Her mother had passed on to the great beyond, and her father, a man with eyes faster than common sense, quickly remarried a woman named Madame Fire, a stepmother whose heart was said to be harder than overcooked yam. Now, Madame Fire had a strange talent. She could smile at church like a saint, then return home and frown like a thunderstorm. If hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, she would have collected gold medals back to back. One unfortunate day, little Ekom mistakenly spilled a cup of Gary on the floor. Normally, in any sensible house, that would just mean bending down to sweep it up. But in Madame Fire's house, mistakes were treated as if they were national crimes. Neighbors swore that she even kept a mental constitution, where rule 1 was, the child must never be happy. That day, Madame Fire reached for a hot pressing iron. And before anyone could say a basimbok, the poor girl's delicate skin had a mark, not of love, but of cruelty. But wait, oh, that was not even the end of the drama. Ekom's cries echoed through the compound, and villagers rushed in. Old Ikot-Akpafid, the gossip chief of the community, shouted. Aye. What type of woman presses a child as if she is ironing wrapper? Madam Firewood, are you running laundry service on human beings? Even the goats stopped chewing to watch the commotion. The stepmother, without blinking, replied. That girl is too stubborn. I was teaching her a lesson. Ikot-Akpafid clapped her hands so hard even the ancestors turned to look. Lesson? Lesson that requires iron. A child is not uniform, my sister. If she was your daughter, would you treat her that way? The case did not end there. Like every proper African story, the matter climbed from gossip to the elders' council. At the village square, where every quarrel becomes community drama, Madame Fire stood accused of cruelty. Some women who passed by shrugged in disbelief. The elders sat under the big iroko tree, fanning themselves with palm fronds, and the debate began. Chief Ekom, who never missed an opportunity to sound wise, declared. It is said that when a goat eats yam, it is not because yam is sweet but because the owner is careless. In this case, our brother was careless for marrying pepper soup without tasting the pepper. By now a little crowd of women and children had gathered. They roared with laughter as Chief Ekom spoke. Even Ekom, despite her pain, managed a small smile. Another elder scratched his white hair a second, appeared deep in thought before adding. If the stepmother wanted to iron something, she should have ironed her own conscience, it is more wrinkled than old bedsheet. By now, the satire was so hot that Madame Fire was sweating more than a politician in fuel scarcity season. But here is where the story got a twist. Just as the elders were about to deliver judgment, Ekom's father arrived. He came with a Bible in one hand and a calabash of palm wine in the other. Typical strategy, mix holiness with hospitality. The elders looked questioningly as he approached. Then, he knelt and begged, saying, Please, elders, forgive my wife. She is just temperamental. The elders shook their heads in shock. One spoke in near whisper. Temperamental? My friend, this one has graduated from temper to generator. In the end, the village decided something unusual. Madame Fire was sentenced to 3 months of community service. She had to cook for the village children every evening, under supervision. The irony? She who used hot iron on a child was now forced to use firewood to cook for children. And Ekom? The little girl became the star of the village. In fact, a community property, people pampered her with akara, mangoes, and endless gifts. She grew up with resilience, her story proving that scars do not define destiny. As for Madame Fire, her name changed. From that day, the villagers started calling her Madame Pressing Iron, a name that followed her like stubborn shadow. And that, my friends, is how one child's silent cry shook a whole community awake. Moral with satire. When you marry someone without checking their heart, you might end up bringing home a private landlord of sorrow. In other words, character is very essential to human and social growth.